Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, it's our Season 3 finale. We talk about the effects of weather on soybean plants and the nitrogen fixation process under stress. Enlist stays where you put it. Hear the most recent drift studies about Enlist and Dicamba, then come to your own conclusions. Our new product guide is available. Check it out on our website in the link below.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe, episode number 52, season 3. 52. Well, you know, our fiscal year is August 1st to July 31st, so technically this is New Year's Eve, you know.
Well, there we go.
Okay, so
better get a glass of champagne.
there we go. Well, as always, there's always things that we run across, and you know, our job here at Cup of Joe is to bring you the newest information that's going on out in the field and answer some of the questions generally that we run into in the field. So we like to always start with Ben because he gets these questions out in the field, and also bring in, you know, some of the industry news that we're seeing. So Ben, I'll let you lead off.
Yep, we continue to get questions on why soybeans are uneven out in the field or why they're slow coming, you know. So with the extreme weather conditions that we've had, I kind of wanted to talk about a couple of the different reasons why when I go out and look at these fields, what we're seeing and maybe some of the reasons why the beans are stunting. So if you are in southeast Iowa, the state of Missouri, southern Illinois, we have had probably what could be considered excessive moisture. So if you're in that geography and you're in a pocket where you have gotten a 4-inch rain or back-to-back 3-inch rain, 2-inch rains where we end up in a saturated soil condition, what happens, and Joe has taught me this, or we've discussed this in the past, is the bradyrhizobia, the fungus that's in the soil that helps
Bacteria. Yeah.
Yep, the bacteria that's in the soil that fixes nitrogen out of the soil to help the plants, is when they are in total saturation for a day or two, they actually shut down and the colonies get really small. So when that soybean plant is shut down, or when the rhizobia shut down, there's no nitrogen fixation happening, that a plant can't grow. Soybeans take a lot more nitrogen per bushel than what corn plants do because it's a protein based.
Yeah, it's a good soybean plant some years needs 300 pounds of nitrogen. Of course, it makes its own if it doesn't have enough in the soil.
Correct. So when that's happening and we have complete saturation, either whether it be corn or soybeans, but it's affected more in soybeans, it takes 30 days for those colonies to get rolling again, to get the numbers that they need to start running and growing again. So if you see a lag, a 3-week or 4-week lag where it just looks like the soybeans aren't growing, more likely than not, you can go back to a calendar date and your local weather station and pick a couple rainfalls that would have caused complete saturation.
You take that oxygen away from those rhizobia bacteria and they're not going to function.
And then you also get the soil surface sealed over.
Correct.
Which doesn't allow any air to get in the soil until it starts cracking.
Yep. So, and that leads to the second point. It seems like this year, from in those areas that have had excessive moistures, we go from way too much rain to extremely hot and dry. Mm-hmm. So the soybean plant essentially goes from too much to too little really, really quickly, and it's constantly working to try to create nitrogen. It's trying to pull nutrients in through the roots. It's actually, some of these beans look almost drought stressed because they don't have the soybean roots underneath them to keep pulling the moisture in when we're going through heat and drought stress to keep the respiration happening. So in the wet areas, it's pretty explainable. You can kind of see it in the dips out in the fields. If you have a terrace tops where the beans look phenomenal, or if you have some high points in the field where the beans look way better in those high points than they do in the low points, more likely than not, you're probably looking at an excessive moisture situation. So
locally here, pattern tiled fields, you can tell it, you know, where the tile are, you know, the beans are taller, and you know, as you get them move away from the tile, you can see more problems with the ponding and the lack of oxygen. So this is going to be a year the tile folks are going to be busy fixing those wet spots in this area.
Yep, and that goes to it goes to show that that tile is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
My dad always said you're paying for tile whether you have it or not. Yep. And then I always say when you put tile in, it's like burying your money in the back 40.
There you go. So then you go to the opposite extreme. I've seen where if we get into extremely dry soils, we have the same uneven pattern. And listening to a couple other agronomists and other podcasts, I found in 2 or 3 situations where in no-till, where the tractor has driven, that mashes the corn fodder down, that corn fodder actually deteriorates a little bit faster. And anywhere where we have standing stalks on the outsides of the planter width, those standing stalks actually have about a 5-degree cooler soil temperature than where the tractor drove. So now we have this uneven emergence or uneven soybean canopy out in the field as you look from one end of the field to the other. And it's actually because there's more heat in the middle where the tractor had driven, and you can literally go out and take a 4-inch soil probe and measure the top 2 inches of the dirt, and you can get a temperature fluctuation. And that temperature fluctuation, it doesn't seem like that much when you're out there in that one particular day when you're looking at an uneven field, but when you take 5 degrees compounded over time, that makes a big difference on what the microbes in the soil are doing, how much nitrogen that plant's fixing, because the microbes in the soil like the same conditions that an ideal soybean plant does. It likes about 50% water, so you're not at field saturation, but you're not completely dry either. So the microbes like the water, they like the air, and they like the heat. So the more of those 3 things, or when everything's in balance and you have extra heat, the soybean plant is going to it's going to develop faster. It's going to grow faster. It's going to go put more distance between nodes. It's going to grow faster. Which brings me to my final point, is when we stage these uneven areas, most of the time, when I stage a short plant versus a tall plant, we have the same number of nodes from the bottom to the top.
Yep.
It's just a matter of a little bit more, and if you can go out and measure them too, if there's just a little bit more distance between the nodes, it makes a big difference on how fast the field canopies and how that bean actually looks. So, when are beans made?
August.
So this is critical. We are now at, we're New Year's Eve. We're going into the new year, August time frame. This is when we need to catch the moistures. This is when the bean crop is. This is when we make a bean crop. Corn crop is important. The month of July is extremely important to determine what the corn crop is going to be. The month of August is extremely important for the soybean crop.
Yeah, so as time goes on, a farmer's going to be able to go in those low spots, pull up a plant, count how many pods he's got, and go to the good spot, count how many pods he's got, and compare. And you may end up finding that you could potentially have just about as many pods on a shorter plant as you do the taller plant.
Yep.
They'll probably just slightly delayed in development.
Yep. What I'm saying is there's probably not the drastic difference that you're going to see. It's not like you're going to be picking 20 bushel soybeans here and 70 bushel soybeans here. It's probably really close because we're not seeing as much pod abortion. We're not seeing flower abortion to an extreme measure on those shorter plants. They're there. They don't take much moisture. Where they start to take moisture is when we're in pod fill. Yeah. And we're there right now. We're filling pods.
I agree. We probably took some yield hit, but not like half or anything like that. Doing test plots all the time, right before you harvest, you walk down the test plot and you look at all the beans, and obviously your eye is attracted to the tall beans. But my experience has been the tall beans never win. It's the normal height ones that usually win because you get paid for soybeans, not for stems in elongation. So time will tell. But the farmers with the yield monitors, they'll know. They'll know how much that water damage, excessive water, or ponding, or whatever you want to call it, cost them. But I agree with you, Ben. I don't think it's going to be it's going to be a hit, but not a terrible hit.
Yep. So one of the other things that we get phone calls on, basically the entire month of July, it seems like, is off-target injury to soybeans, and there's been articles out by one of our competitors, STINE. I wanted to bring some information that they have provided. So they've been collecting dicamba injured soybeans, or presumably dicamba injured soybeans, and they're starting to get results back on those.
So they went out, they saw a field, pulled the leaves, sent it to where? Where did they send it to?
South Dakota Agricultural Laboratory.
And then they had them run parts per billion on dicamba plus what? A bunch of other herbicides.
Yep. So if you go on that South Dakota Agricultural Laboratories, you can pull up the form and you can look at all the different herbicides and things that they can test in the leaf. And you click the button and it'll show group 4, group 6, group 12, group 27. And that's how they kind of differentiate is between the different classes of chemistry. So on the two different tests that they put off in their release here, they had a 2.66 parts per billion and a 10.2 parts per billion on two different fields in Nebraska. And the other field was
Knoxville, Iowa.
Knoxville, Iowa.
Yep. So basically, sent the leaves in, had them test for all these different herbicides, came back one herbicide, right?
Yep.
And that one herbicide was what?
Dicamba.
Dicamba. So they got a whole bunch more tests coming in. And I think the conclusion you can draw is that this best scientific proof that it wasn't all these other herbicides that some of the folks, it totally debunks some of the field information that we're getting. Well, it's this herbicide or it's that herbicide, it's this or that. It's coming back to dicamba. So I think that's a significant finding, and we'll post that link so you can read it yourself and find out what they did. And there's more tests coming. So, Harry STINE has been pretty vocal about this, and I think he was, like he said, the interview that he did with NPR, which is a kind of a leftist type organization, and he basically said he could handle taking damage to his plots, but when the field people and employees of this certain company start saying, no, it's bad gene, it's not our fault, that's when he spoke out. And I believe that there's going to be ramifications. The EPA has already said they are investigating the facts. We also have the court case about how the dicamba registration went, and that hasn't ruled yet. So more fireworks coming on this label, and I predict that there will be some type of change to the label. And Turk, you've been suggesting pre-emerge only, and I second that motion. So we'll see.
There are cutoff dates at the very least. Has to be implemented.
So that brings us to the other topic. We're promoting the Enlist system, the new 2,4-D choline. Does it go off target, Ben?
We have another study. The answer is no. It's just flat out no. So there's another study by Cambridge University. They actually did the study in Wisconsin, and they basically put filter papers out, and they measure the amount, the same way that you measure how much dicamba gas is off. They have the same ability to measure whether 2,4-D gas is off. And they put filter papers out, and they can tell you how many nanograms per centimeter cubed is out in there, but that's not going to mean anything to any of us. What the important part of this study showed was that they went and measured what kind of damage, how far the damage moved to a non-target 2,4-D or for an off-target movement, and any level of damage that they measured was 0.63 and 0.9 meters. So that is 1.5 feet to 3 feet, which is about what we've been saying.
Yeah, we've been saying 1 row, and so that confirms that material at the most moves about 1 row. And what's our buffer? For it's what, 30 feet.
If you're talking towards susceptible areas or sensitive crops.
Yeah, 30 feet. Yeah. But if you're going next to soybeans, there is no buffer or border. Because soybeans are not considered a sensitive crop to 2,4-D.
Correct.
So anyhow, and we'll put those links up so you can read and ascertain your information directly yourself and make your own conclusions. But we have a very, very good product, and it's safe and it's neighbor friendly, and it was done right. There's no question about it. It just goes to show, Ben, that Enlist E3 is a very, very good system with its glyphosate, glufosinate, and 2,4-D choline technology. I don't know why anybody wouldn't use it over worrying about dinging their neighbors or having some kind of confrontation, it's a great product. And I hope that more and more farmers after this year take a look at the Enlist E3 system, and you might be able to sleep a little better at night knowing.
Kill weeds and stay home.
That's right. Turk, any fireworks this week?
Not a lot, Joe. The biggest fireworks was earlier in the week when the crop progress report come out. The trade was really expecting to see some type of improvement because of the recent rains that we've had in some of the really dry areas. But lo and behold, crop progress ratings went down. Totally caught the trade off guard. We've seen a big spike in prices, and then everybody kind of settled down and said, well, let's think about this a little bit, because we can't just keep pushing prices up all the time. So what we're seeing, and the drought monitor come out this week again and showed, even though in spite of these rains, there was no improvement in any of these dry areas in the drought monitor. So Ellen Taylor used to say you can still have a drought and still have really good yields, but that requires timely rains, Mother Nature helping you out in other areas with all the smoke that we've got across the Midwest. It's helped keeping temperatures down from what they normally would.
Yeah, this Friday Iowa's under a smoke alert, and that came from the West Coast, and no different than shows that dicamba can go a long way too. So it's all relative, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So the temperatures are running a little bit below what they normally would. I think the forecast is to stay fairly cool for. We're not going to get temperatures up in the 90s and 100s for a little while in the foreseeable future here, and so that's good news. But again, when are soybeans made?
August.
And so we have to have those timely rains in August, and we're to that point where if we don't see the market move up significantly here by the middle of August, it's probably going to start moving the other way because we're starting to run out of time to make a difference. And China's not buying anything right now. They've basically are telling us that prices are too high. We're not buying at these levels, so they're going to wait for the price to come back down, $1, $2, whatever it is, before they start buying again. Well, but I think it will happen.
The basis is reflecting that the demand is not there. I always look at the basis as my indicator. How strong is demand? When you see that basis narrow or even go positive, that means the buyer wants soybeans really bad. And now it's widening out. So it appears that folks are either holding back from buying, waiting for that new crop. Like say, what do they got to lose? I guess
farmers are holding also any thing that they have in the bin, which I don't think is very much anymore. There's just not a lot of soybeans out there, and that's a reflection of that basis as well.
So August is going to determine the soybean market, up or down. But again, just along the peripheral edges, we're starting to hear about spider mites, which when you get spider mites, that means you're in big time drought.
Yep.
And that's one insect you do not want to take a hold of your soybean crop because they can destroy it very quickly.
It happens very quick, and then we're starting to hear more about the Japanese beetles too. So usually when you start having bug problems, you're in a more of a drier situation.
Stay tuned, right?
Yep.
Well, the only one thing I have is, and this came out Friday from our Independent Professional Seed Association, and it was a lawsuit that was filed on Monday, and it was done to say that the lawsuit would overturn Trump-era rules on genetically engineered crops. And I've just glanced at it. It's a 90-page lawsuit, but basically what it's saying is that when Trump did some executive order to lessen the regulations on approvals of GMO products, that this was not done correctly, and so they're challenging that, which would really put the brakes on bringing new products to market, and then potentially even affect some existing products. And dicamba was mentioned in that, as well as many other herbicides. So we'll study that and keep an eye on that. Maybe give a little bit better update next week when we learn a little bit more about it. Well, Ben, as we head to the corny joke, this one here, touch its home base for you. You're a volunteer fire department firefighter, right? So this one here, you might be able to relate to, okay? As you know, as a firefighter. Did you hear about the big fire at the circus?
No, I did not.
It was intense.
That's horrible.
That's the worst one ever. Yeah. Well, that's it for this week. You know, Ben tried to catch him off guard a little bit, but it's awful hard to get ahead of him. So we'll see you next week, and we hope, again, don't forget, you can watch this or listen to it as a podcast, as well as watching it on YouTube. So thank you for your business. We look forward to serving you next year. Hope you and your family are safe. Take care.